Hey guys, Nick from Arch City Poker, archcityplo.com. Today's video, another step-by-step video for you site members, for you YouTube subscribers. This is going to be your one step-by-step video a month that I'm delivering to you. This time we're going to go over a no-limit hand. I know for you YouTube subscribers, you are mainly looking for no-limit content. But for you site members, obviously I'm pumping out no-limit and PLO step-by-step videos weekly right now. So let's get into this hand. This was a live 1-2 game that I played a while back. Had some notes in this hand. Thought it was decently interesting, a good one to share. So folds to this loose passive recreational player. You're going to see a lot of this type of play from them. They're going to open limp, which is definitely incorrect. I go ahead and try to isolate him with ace-8 of spades. So step one, pre-flop decision. Do I feel confident that this is the right decision? Yeah, I think this hand is definitely ahead of his range. It's also a hand that is going to play pretty well multi-way, even if I do get action from, the small blind and or the Maniac. If the Maniac decides to 3-bet, I have a hand I could call with. I could actually, I think I would do a lot of 4-betting with this hand, to be totally honest with you guys. But I think overall the pre-flop decision here is clearly to raise. There's no reason I should be over-limping. We don't want to pay into rake. There's really no advantage to just limping along and playing the same strategy as these guys. So we want to raise. We want to take the initiative and, try to bloat pots when we're in position, and especially when we're on the button, we have absolute position. So go ahead and raise. Small blind folds. Maniac calls. He is going to do a lot of 3-betting here. He's also going to do a ton of calling. There's just rarely folding from Maniacs, especially in the big blind. And then the loose passive player decides to call as well. So step 2, stack to pot ratio. Why is this the second step? Why does SPR matter? It really does help us plan our hand out. It helps us understand what type of pot we potentially could be involved in, what type of pot we want to actually be involved in. And, 31... it looks like the passive player is we're going to have an SPR with him of about, looks like 8 or 8.5. With the Maniac, it's going to be my stack effectively, looks like about 11. So SPR is quite high. If I had pocket aces here, I wouldn't feel comfortable committing with that hand on the flop. I really do think I would need 2 pairs or better to feel very comfortable at this point, or like some kind of nutty draw, so basically like nut flush draws. If we move on to step 3 and 4, that will help us complete the process of creating a plan for my hand. Step 3, range and polarity advantage are going to belong to myself on King 8 deuce. I just have more top set than both opponents, more ace-ace, more ace-king, more even king-queen suited, king-jack suited, simply due to their pre-flop actions. They capped themselves. The Maniac didn't 3-bet. Passive player only limp calls pre-flop. So I definitely have not only the stronger range, but I have nuttier combos in my range as well. So we can check off range and polarity advantage, which allows me to play more aggressively than both of my opponents in this spot. I'm also going to be able to bluff catch a little bit more often due to the fact that their ranges are a little bit capped. That's something to note as well. Last step, step 4, where am I at within my range? And this is, like I've said 100 times before, possibly the most important step, guys. It really does help you determine what type of pot you want to be involved in. With ace-8, middle pairs, they're often, well, it's the word in itself, pretty middling. You have often middling equity. They are good to maybe get, especially if you have ace-8, like a street of value, maybe 2 against the loose passive guys that will just make a lot of calling mistakes. But overall, especially when you have really aggressive players, when you're quite deep, you don't want to put yourself in a tough spot where you're betting just because you want some protection. You don't want to just bet for information. What's going to end up happening is you're going to bet, and then the Maniac's going to check raise a lot, and it's going to put you in a really uncomfortable spot to where now all of a sudden you've totally disregarded the high SPR, the fact that you're not really that high up in your range, and we're now not going to play the small to medium pot that we wanted to play in to begin with. So what I'm getting at is if they both check to me here, I think the best decision is to probably check. If I were heads up with any unknown in a 1-2 game, any loose passive player that just limp called, I would definitely value bet here. There's way too much value that could be missed in this spot. You're not going to get raised often enough to worry about that, and even if they do raise you, they just have a better hand. They're not going to really be bluffing at that point. So, I get value from worse pairs. I get value from possible flush draws he could have, but when I am multi-way, I'm going to polarize my range a little bit more. I'm going to focus on betting just mainly top pair or better for the most part, and then some draws to balance that out. Maybe some air sometimes like queen jack of hearts here, but not really as often, especially with a pretty aggressive player that can, I think, get overly sticky. You don't mind when these guys bluff you off of your bluffs, but you do want to be pretty polarized to hands that when they decide to get aggressive with you, if you're at the top of your range, then you're fine with that. If you're at the bottom, you're fine with that as well. But if you have a hand that's kind of middling, you don't really want to be put in that spot. This hand deserves to get to showdown, but we want to do it in a pretty cheap manner. So I'm going to go ahead and check back here. That's what I actually did in the hand. 7 of clubs, the Maniac a lot of times is going to sense weakness or perceived weakness. They are going to lead out here trying to steal the pot. That's what they do. They thrive on information. When they see checks, they feel weakness. They decide to bet. I'm not saying that's wrong at this point, but when you have a good thinking player in position, you need to be careful about basically getting out of line with that kind of strategy. Passive player folds. My plan from the flop, going through that step-by-step process, was to keep this pot a little bit smaller. I don't think I'm quite high enough in my range to raise for value. I also don't want to face a turn 3-bet here. That would be a big disaster, put me in a spot to probably make the wrong decision a lot of the time. So I decided to just call. Yes, rivers are going to be, not, I wouldn't say tricky, but could be a little uncomfortable. He's likely going to fire again. You just need to understand that there are going to be so many hands that he has that have missed here that we need to be willing to bluff catch actually quite a bit. And I'm pretty high up in my range. On the turn, I'm probably raising him with a lot of my top pair hands and better. So ace-8's actually decently high up there. When he bets here, yeah, he could have 8-7 for 2 pairs. He could have a king. I don't think he has a whole lot of king-queen. I don't think he has top set. I don't think he has a ton of middle set, as he probably would have squeezed with pocket 8s a lot of the time. Doesn't really have pocket queens. So, yeah, he is a little bit capped. He could have some better hands here, but I think for the most part, he's going to have a lot of air. He's going to have a lot of missed straight draws and diamond draws in here that I need to call at this point. So, understanding the player profile, understanding that if I call here, it's getting to where it's a pretty medium to decent sized pot, but I've done a good job of keeping it as small as I possibly can, considering who my opponent is. So I do go ahead and call. I forgot to put his hand in to reveal, but he had Jack-10 offsuit, so he decided to stab with his gutter and then barrel on the river without showdown value, and I was able to pick him off with a hand that I think I planned out pretty well. So if you guys got any questions or comments, site members and or YouTube subscribers, go ahead and let me know. Otherwise, YouTube subscribers, I'll see you guys next Thursday. Site members, seeing you guys daily. So, yep, see you guys next time. Thanks.